Andrea sat in the cafe, barely holding back tears. I can't cry in front of everyone, she thought, just as the cafe door swung open and he walked in. A solid, tall man in his 30s. He wore a white shirt, damp from the rain. His clothes hugged his body, and Andrea, forgetting her own personal drama for a moment, noted the man's athletic build. "Sorry, we're full," the waiter addressed the man. "Can I wait out the downpour here? I'm not sure how I can help you, but we're full. And standing there, you'll be bothering our guests. I don't even know." Andrea sat near the entrance so she could hear the conversation between the men clearly. Without much thought, she turned to one of them. "You can sit with me. I'm not waiting for anyone." "Thank you so much," the man smiled, sitting beside the girl without even acknowledging the waiter. "You're a lifesaver." "You're welcome," she managed to say. They sat in silence for a few minutes. The man ordered coffee, and Andrea didn't even look at him, pretending to be engrossed in her phone. But in reality, she was feverishly scrolling through old photos, deleting all the ones with him, her ex-boyfriend, Antonio. She had other guys before him, but he was the one who had deeply touched her soul and then spat on it. He broke her heart, deceived her, and then simply ran away, taking with him all the money they had saved for their wedding. If only Andrea had known that he had never even planned to marry her. All Antonio wanted was her money. After all, he couldn't earn his own living, and Andrea, since childhood, had been accustomed to relying only on herself. At 25, she became an assistant to the chief editor at a well-known magazine. That's when she first met Antonio. He worked as a courier and flirted with all the girls who met his standards of beauty. Andrea fit those standards perfectly. Dark green eyes, straight black hair, and, most importantly, excessive thinness, which, for some reason, attracted Antonio so much. She immediately responded to his advances. She was deeply attracted to him. "I have butterflies in my stomach," she told her friends, while they shook their heads. "What butterflies? He's unreliable, irresponsible, and a womanizer on top of that. He'll cheat on you. Why do you need someone like him?" But Andrea ignored her friend's advice. She had never been so deeply in love before. Indeed, for 4 years, while they were together, Andrea felt a strong attachment to this man. She turned a blind eye to many things: his constant partying, his irresponsible behavior, his temper, and even the fact that he often stole money from her card. But he knew how to justify himself and say what Andrea wanted to hear at the time. "Forgive me, my dear, my love. I took this money to buy you a gift. You know I'm not working right now, and my conscience doesn't allow me to give you a cheap trinket from the market. You're my queen and deserve royal gifts. I found a side job, but they'll only pay me in a week. I thought I'd take money from your card, and then I'd reimburse it, and you wouldn't even notice. I'm such a fool. Forgive me, my love, forgive me, please. What a fool I am," he cried on her lap. And after his beautiful speeches, Andrea couldn't help but forgive her beloved, because she believed him wholeheartedly. She believed and didn't notice how much falsehood was in his words. "Your coffee," the waiter placed a cup in front of the man. This phrase pulled Andrea out of her memories. She raised her head and didn't realize how a tear betrayingly slid down her cheek. "Are you okay?" the man across from her asked. Yes, sorry," the woman wiped away the tear. She wanted to look out the window and dive back into memories, but she couldn't take her eyes off the man who was slowly bringing the cup of hot coffee to his lips. She felt as if something was about to happen, so some unknown force compelled her to watch. And Andrea watched. The man's hand suddenly jerked. Coffee began to spill over the edge of the cup. 1, 2, 3. The whole hot drink was now on this man's shirt. "What kind of day is this?" he muttered softly. Andrea laughed out loud and squeezed out through laughter. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Your shirt clearly isn't meant to dry off." At first, the man looked sternly at her. He didn't like being laughed at, but her infectious laughter and stunning smile made him smile too. "My name is Antonio. And yours?" "Oh God, Antonio. I don't want to get to know you. I won't survive a second, Antonio." The woman's smile abruptly disappeared from her face. "I'm probably too rude, but it's better to be like this. Either you're rude and bad, or they'll treat you badly and rudely." "Do you think I'm a bad person?" Antonio replied. "I don't know." The girl lowered her gaze, and then repeated softly in a whisper, "I don't know anything anymore, and I don't understand anything." "You're tired, I see. But fate didn't accidentally bring us here, if you believe in fate, of course. If I hadn't gotten soaked in the rain, I would have never popped into this cafe. And if at least one table had been free, I wouldn't have sat down with you. And honestly, I hardly ever drink coffee. but for some reason, I wanted to order this drink right now. And damn it, the man looked into the empty cup. I still won't drink the coffee. The girl smiled. I'm Andrea. Nice to meet you. And honestly, I always have breakfast at home on Saturdays, but today I decided to come here. Destiny? Destiny, Andrea said with a smile. Why did fate send me you, Antonio, and not Alejandro or Bruno? Why does fate mock me, laugh at me? Perhaps you should draw some lessons from the life situation you've experienced. Maybe I'm not the best advisor, but I'm a good listener. The rain doesn't seem to be stopping, and I still haven't had my coffee. You can tell me, a stranger, what happened to you, and maybe you'll feel better. Oh, Antonio. My boyfriend, ex-boyfriend now, was also Antonio, and he's disappeared. And with him, all my money. We were planning a wedding. So he was your fiancé, and you even met his parents? The girl pondered. In 4 years, he never introduced her to any of his relatives or friends. He didn't propose to me, but he said we needed to save up for the wedding and then get married. And we kept all the money in cash. He said it was safer in case the bank card gets blocked or stolen or fraudsters get hold of the information. As Andrea spoke these words, she realized how cunningly he had manipulated her. She started crying again. He's a jerk, she said through tears. I loved him, and he deceived me. He was draining money from me, and I didn't even notice. Love is blind, the man said, gently patting her hand. Andrea looked up. You know, he didn't just take the money we saved for the wedding. He took everything. He emptied my wallet and all my bank accounts. And with the last bit of money I found in my jacket, I decided to come here, to this cafe, because everything in the apartment reminds me of him. Did you report it to the police? Yes. They said, firstly, Antonio Gonzalez is a very common name and surname. And secondly, there's no evidence of a crime. I have my bank card, it's not blocked. The money was used to buy cryptocurrency, and they can't find out who owns that crypto wallet. Maybe I orchestrated it all myself. And now I want to find my ex-boyfriend and get revenge. It's impossible to prove that we kept cash at home. He pulled a cunning move. Even the police won't help here. Andrea couldn't hold back her tears again. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, Andrea. I understand how hard it is to go through all of this. Betrayal by someone close is awful. But life goes on. We have to move forward, look towards the future. The main thing is to learn from this experience. Let it be a valuable lesson for you. I've learned this lesson for myself. I've drawn conclusions. In relationships, one loves and the other allows themselves to be loved. One sacrifices and the other always wins. I will never be a sacrifice again, thought Andrea, and simply smiled. You're right, Antonio. We just need to get through this. Will you pay my bill, please? 7 years passed. Antonio and Andrea got married. The woman didn't work. She forgot about her career in the magazine and became a housewife. Antonio earned a lot, so supporting the family was easy for him. The man loved his wife, telling her words of love every day. The only thing he lacked was a son or daughter. He really wanted a big family, but when he realized that Andrea couldn't get pregnant, he began praying to God to send them at least one child. But the miracle didn't happen. And it never will, as long as Andrea secretly takes contraceptive pills. She didn't want children for 2 reasons. Firstly, Andrea believed that the world was too cruel, and she didn't want to bring a person into this world of her own free will. And secondly, she didn't love Antonio. And after 7 years of being together, he even started to annoy her. And the only time she enjoyed life was when Antonio went on business trips. No, she didn't cheat on him or bring lovers home. She also watched TV shows, cooked food, and read books. But it was during these moments of solitude that she felt happy. But lately, she couldn't enjoy solitude. Antonio's father, Fernando, now lives with them. He's already elderly, so he needs help. He can't live alone anymore. Someone has to cook for him, do his laundry, clean. And Fernando is not good at being alone. And caregivers, they're strangers. I always dreamed of a big family, Antonio's father would say. And in the end, my wife died, my son is alone, there are no grandchildren, and you want me to live alone in my old age? Fernando would address his son. So, Antonio moved his father to their house with Andrea. There was enough space there, but the man didn't consider that Fernando and Andrea would almost hate each other. At first, they were both polite and attentive to each other. Andrea cooked Fernando's favorite dishes, and he could watch TV shows with her, even though the elderly man always fell asleep during them. But, over time, pretending to be polite became impossible. Andrea wanted to be alone. She was tired of constantly looking after the restless old man, who was always shouting, "Andrea, make me some coffee," or "Andrea, bring me food. Andrea, did you wash my pants?" At the same time, he was terribly annoyed that every Monday and Thursday, the girl went to the gym. He said she should stay home and look after him in case his heart suddenly stopped. And why did she need a gym if she had a husband? And then Fernando began to suspect his daughter-in-law of infidelity. Every time Antonio went to work, he would create scenes for Andrea. "Who are you texting? Your lover? Is that why you're always going to him?" he would accuse her. "I'm going to the store for groceries, to the gym. When, in your opinion, do I go to my lover?" "How should I know? You're only with Antonio for the money. You think I don't see it, deceiver? You'll steal his money and run away with your lover. I can sense it. I can feel it," Fernando cursed. That was the last straw for Andrea. She remembered how they had treated her like that several years ago. She remembered how she cried in the cafe and vowed never to be a victim again. And no old man should ruin her life. Now she would ruin his life. "You want a big family so badly, Fernando, don't you? You want a grandson or granddaughter, and you're so afraid we'll send you to a nursing home. But don't worry, you old goat. You'll be begging to leave that place, but you'll live with me under this roof until the end of your days." A couple of months passed. During this time, Fernando realized what devil was hiding in this slender girl. Andrea not only constantly humiliated the old man, but did everything to make him feel bad. Somewhere she bought terribly bitter, tasteless tea, and when Fernando asked for coffee, she brewed the awful and stinky tea with a smile and brought it to Antonio's father. She deliberately hid all the coffee in the house, and Antonio himself didn't even notice because he rarely drinks coffee, unlike his father. "Where is that damn coffee? I'll brew it myself," Fernando shouted in the presence of Antonio and Andrea. "Dad, you shouldn't have too much coffee. Andrea specifically bought you medicinal tea," Antonio replied. "You have a witch for a wife. I won't drink her potion." Andrea remained silent. She never replied to Fernando in front of her husband, but as soon as he left, a real family drama began. And lately, Antonio was constantly away on business trips. "Goodbye, darling," Andrea shouted after her husband and slammed the door. "Now listen to me, you old fool. You're not needed by anyone here. I don't care about you, and it seems your son doesn't care either. Doesn't even notice how lonely you are here. Look, when he comes home from work, does he ask you how you're doing? No, he goes straight to bed. And you know why he doesn't want children? Because Antonio doesn't want his child to have such a grandfather." Andrea turned and walked back to her room. She felt sick to her stomach. There was so much lying and hatred in her words. She lied, deliberately said things that would hurt Fernando. And it did. The old man laid down on the couch and couldn't believe what he heard, because he had dreamed so much of a big family. He dreamed of grandchildren, and all his dreams shattered against reality. His son was all about work, his daughter-in-law humiliated him every day, and now it turns out his son, his Antonio, doesn't want children. He wanted to talk to his son, discuss this issue face to face, but Antonio would only come back in 3 weeks, another business trip. It had been 1.5 weeks since Antonio left. Fernando was going crazy. Andrea wouldn't let him live peacefully. She constantly accused him of being too old and weak. She didn't even notice how she turned into a beast herself. When the old man fell asleep watching TV, she deliberately turned up the volume to the maximum so that he would be scared and wake up to the loud sounds. Then she would yell at the old man, "My goodness, you've plopped your rear end on the remote again, you old fool. Lower the volume." "Please, Andrea, I can't live with you in this house anymore. Send me to a nursing home." "Have you lost your mind, Fernando? You're practically family to me. The father of my beloved husband. How could I send you to a nursing home? Who would I make fun of then? I told you, you'll live with me under the same roof until the end of your days." "All right, I'll go make myself a cup of coffee. I brewed some while you were sleeping. I hope you didn't see where I hid it. Would you like some brewed for you?" "Yes, please," the elderly man replied hopefully. And Andrea went to the kitchen to brew the stinky, bitter tea. With just a week left until Antonio's arrival, Fernando realized that the only person who could help him was his son. He called him every evening. "Son, come quickly. Take me to my apartment. Dad, there are tenants living there. I can't just evict them. And who will take care of you there? At home, Andrea is looking after you." "That witch is tormenting me." "Don't say that. She's still my wife." "Antonio, take me to the nursing home, anywhere, just away from your wife." "Dad, what's happened?" "I dreamed of having a family, dreamed of grandchildren, and everyone has betrayed me. Even you're betraying me now, leaving me with her. I'm your father, and I love you. And now I'm just asking you not to abandon me. I have no one else besides you." "Dad," came the voice on the other end of the line. "I know you think I'll be a terrible grandfather. Is it because I was a bad father?" But I scolded you only when necessary, never hit you. And I spent little time because your mother was sick, and I had to work a lot, very hard. I did everything I could. Forgive me, maybe I was a bad father, but I'll truly be a good grandfather. Dad, you're a great father, the best, Antonio cried. Forgive me, please. I made a mistake. Forgive me. I'll come right now. Antonio? You were supposed to come back in a week. What happened? Andrea was surprised. I came for my father. I'll explain everything later. He walked past his wife and shouted, Dad, get ready. I need to take you somewhere. Are you taking him to the nursing home? What nonsense has he come up with? Andrea was nervous. Everything's fine. I'll explain later. The man waved off. Dad, where are you? Let's go. They got into the car, leaving Andrea completely puzzled. In fact, even Fernando didn't understand what was happening. Only Antonio was driving in one direction, and it was evident that he knew this road by heart. Half an hour later, they arrived at a very familiar apartment building. Did you bring me to my apartment? What about the tenants, son? Dad, just wait. They went up to the third floor and entered the apartment where Fernando used to live. Son, thank you. I will live here alone. Don't worry, The elderly man didn't finish the sentence as a girl with a child in her arms came out into the corridor. The boy was about 8 months old, no more. Fernando froze in shock. He saw in this little boy a young Antonio, the same eyes, the same look. Antonio, Dad, this is my son, your grandson. His name is Rogelio, and this is Maribel, the man stumbled, my love. Fernando didn't know what to say. He just approached the girl and asked, May I? Maribel cautiously handed the child to his grandfather. Rogelio, grandson, I will be the best grandfather for you, I promise. I may not walk well, but with you, I will run and play football if you want. I will do everything you ask. Tears filled the eyes of the elderly man. Antonio, why did you hide such a miracle from me? You knew how much I wanted grandchildren. What was I supposed to say? I have another woman, and I have a son from her? It's complicated, Dad. I know. Let's go to the kitchen and talk. They sat down and drank fragrant coffee while Maribel put the child to sleep. How did this happen, Antonio? Why not Andrea? We tried, and then I saw that she was taking contraceptive pills. I realized she didn't love me. But I also realized that I didn't love her either. But I didn't know what to do. I was so used to being with her, it was convenient for me, and apparently for her too. I never stopped respecting her. I tell her every day that I love her. But I love her like a sister, not like a wife. And how could I leave her? She has no savings of her own, she has no job, and despite not loving me, she never cheated on me. And when I met Maribel, everything inside me turned upside down. I had never loved like this before. Every minute with her was meaningful, filled with life. Every time we parted, I counted the minutes until we would see each other again. And then, I brought you home, and Maribel suggested living here in your apartment. We lived here together. I didn't go on business trips. During that time, I was with her, and now she has given me a son. What else is there to dream of? I have everything, a great job, true love, and a son. But what about Andrea? I don't know. Son, Fernando said, Andrea is a strong woman, and she deserves to know the truth. Life in lies leads to nothing good. Sometimes choices have to be made. I know how difficult they can be, but fate doesn't just bring two people together for no reason. Sometimes forever, and sometimes to teach us a lesson. 2 years have passed. Antonio and Andrea got divorced. Now the man lives with Maribel and raises their son. Fernando spends a lot of time with his grandson, always helping, and yet he has a great relationship with his new daughter-in-law. Andrea moved to another city and got a job as an editor at a small publishing house. The salary is small, but it's enough for her, especially since she and her ex-husband Antonio parted without quarrels. They parted as friends, as they say. They fairly divided their joint property, so Andrea had her own car and some small personal savings. One day her car broke down, so she had to take public transport to work, but she never expected to feel so nauseous on the bus. She had to get off much earlier than her stop and walk. Suddenly, a man called out to her, "Miss, you seem to have dropped something." Andrea turned and saw her wallet in the hands of a stranger. She checked her pockets, empty, looked back in her bag, no wallet. "Oh my God, this is my wallet. Thank you so much." "You're welcome," the stranger replied. "My name is Alejandro, and yours?" "Andrea. Nice to meet you." It's so funny how things turned out. Today, for the first time, I decided to walk to work, and here I meet you, Alejandro smiled. "You won't believe it. I'm in a similar situation," the girl smiled. "Maybe it's fate. Do you believe in fate?" "I do, but fate so often gets it wrong.